Here's the thing about Taylor Lorenz. She has a habit of getting involved in drama. At the start of her career, she was the head of social media for the Daily Mail, a right-wing British newspaper most known for spreading misinformation, fear-mongering, and stoking moral panic. Fast forward a few years, and Lorenz jumped to the Washington Post, a more center-left publication, where she wrote as a technology and online culture columnist. While employed at the Post, she revealed the full name of the Libs of TikTok account, Shia Reichik, which led to a debate over whether or not this counted as doxing. In 2024, she uploaded an Instagram selfie with President Biden in the background, with the caption, "War criminal." This got her a lot of criticism from the more liberal audience, and she denied making the post altogether. 3 months later, she left the Washington Post to start a Substack, and her current YouTube channel, which is now boasting 190,000 subscribers. So, what's she up to these days? Reporting on ICE protests in Roblox? Interviewing the Mr. Beast of OnlyFans?
I don't know if you've ever tried to have sex with a toilet, but it is difficult because you're basically in like a deep lunge the entire time. It's a hard thing, and also cramming all of your cameras in the bathroom.
And in late August, she published an incredibly defamatory article for Wired magazine, claiming that multiple liberal influencers were accepting funding from dark money groups, and pushing a unified ideology onto smaller creators. I spent some time going through the article line by line, learning a lot of new things about dark money, and assessing the claims that she makes. So let's get into it. Before we can dive into the article itself, we have to cover a couple of bases. Let's start with a little bit of context as to what this nefarious program even is. Chorus was founded by Brian Tyler Cohen, a progressive media figure with a massive online following, and Stuart Perelmuter, a former communications director for the House Representative John Yarmouth of Kentucky. Brian himself describes the program as an incubator for creators, where larger liberal content creators mentor those with smaller audiences. They provide media and press training, workshops, and financial stability so that the creators can focus on their content full-time. The most important thing to know about this program is that Chorus was not paying them to create content. Chorus is not involved directly with the Democratic Party nor the DNC. It states clearly in their FAQ section on their website that there were no restrictions on what they could create, and that they would not be paid to post on their behalf. This funding went directly towards training and removing barriers to content creation. For example, the creator Farm to Tabor has been dealing with cease and desist demands for speaking up on human trafficking and modern-day slavery within the agriculture industry. Paying lawyers to fight back can be expensive, and with support from Chorus, she was able to pay those lawyers without losing her channel. The goal is to allow independent progressive creators of varying backgrounds to grow and be more effective in their messaging. Participating in the online political landscape requires a lot of persuasion in order to get people to support your causes, but that doesn't mean forcing your beliefs onto others. What makes this ironic is that this article attacks creators for not speaking on topics that Taylor personally cares about, inadvertently trying to enforce a true and moral position. But overall, this is a training program. They learn how to frame arguments, respond quickly and effectively to breaking news, and how to collaborate with others. They participate in team-building meetings and group chats, but the creators aren't told what to say or which politicians to endorse. The whole point is to support independent progressive creators, something we desperately need in this moment, not to create a secret army of paid Democratic shills. So Taylor makes a really convenient decision to not define what she means by dark money, meaning it can either be understood as a legal term or a colloquial pejorative sort of thing. I also keep reading dark money as dark mommy. Money, refers to political spending where the original donors are hidden. It usually comes from nonprofits, trade associations, or other organizations that aren't required to disclose their contributors. It's important to note that political action committees are not usually involved with dark money, seeing as PACs must legally disclose donors. More often it comes from places like 501c4 social welfare nonprofits and trade associations. But sometimes, these nonprofits funnel money into super PACs, making it almost impossible to know where the funds originally came from. So, isn't accepting dark money inherently unethical then? Why wouldn't you share this information? Sometimes it's to protect the donors themselves. Especially in such an extreme climate like today's, monetary support for issues such as abortion or trans rights could provoke backlash or even violence against the donor. On the other hand, it could also be billionaires quietly pushing policies that benefit them financially while avoiding public scrutiny that could hurt their profits. I don't need to tell you that access to money from wealthy donors is a positive in a lot of ways. We can use it to expand campaigns, fund outreach projects, and access tools that our conservative counterparts already have access to. We're always in need of donations to boost initiatives like canvassing for progressive policies and expanding social media campaigns. It's been done for years by both major parties, but conservatives really kicked it off. In the late 20th century, two libertarian billionaires, Charles and David Koch, became seriously involved in American politics and began building a dark money network of anonymous donors. They poured money into conservative think tanks like the Heritage Foundation and other organizations aligned with their libertarian agenda. This wealth found its way into groups that opposed climate regulation, labor unions, and social safety nets. And because nobody knew where the money came from, it was harder to trace back to these two men. By the early 2000s, the Koch network was becoming known as a shadow political party, seeing as it rivaled the RNC in both funding and influence. All the worst billionaires you can think of were getting together and pushing policies that benefited them, and not the American people. By the end of the decade, the US Chamber of Commerce, a major American trade association representing businesses, ramped up its political spending in favor of conservative policies, and things were about to get even messier. In 2010, the Supreme Court ruled that corporations, unions, and nonprofits could spend unlimited money on independent political advocacy, as long as it wasn't directly coordinated with a candidate's campaign. This dramatically changed the scope of dark money in a way that not many liberals were willing to take advantage of. With liberalism encompassing many perspectives including equity, ethical behavior, and social welfare, the left has historically been far more cautious to accept money from the wealthy, especially if we don't know who donated it or why. It can seem like a betrayal to the working class. But this raises a question that seems to be at the front of our minds in this current moment in more ways than one. Do we stoop to the level of our opponents, even when it risks losing an election? Even when it risks abandoning our morals? Money is one of the most persuasive arguments in existence, and humans rarely act with perfect morality. Progressive groups face a dilemma: refuse hidden donations and risk losing an election, or accept them and risk moral compromise. But sometimes, the only willing donors are billionaires, making it an almost impossible choice. It might sound scary, but dark money doesn't necessarily mean evil money. There are anonymous donors who advocate for progressive policies without expecting anything in return. It's just really hard to tell who has nefarious intentions and who doesn't. In this case, the 1630 Fund, a large liberal-aligned dark money network, was a fiscal sponsor of the Chorus program. They handle finances, bookkeeping, and administrative needs of a nonprofit that doesn't yet have tax-exempt status such as 501c3. They do not fund the program itself. They accept donations on their behalf while taking a small portion for administrative purposes. This is a massive misunderstanding in the reporting on this article so far, and I wouldn't have even caught it if it weren't for Farm to Tabor. So, shout out to Sarah for helping me cover this with accuracy. The ethics of accepting dark money is a super important conversation to have, and I hope we continue to have it. But that doesn't really come across as the point of Lorenz's article when we're left literally shadowboxing the arguments she presents. Now that we've given ourselves a good jumping off point into the world of dark money, we can all take a moment to find the closest bottle of ibuprofen and finally get into this migraine-inducing article itself. From the opening paragraph, Lorenz makes her stance clear. She doesn't trust Democrats. And that's fine. It's okay to be skeptical. But by using language like take advantage of and secretive program, she's poisoning the well before any facts are even presented. This makes me less likely to trust what she's saying right off the bat. I mean, look at the way she introduces the influencers involved in these allegations. Why does it matter that Eliza Orlins was on Survivor? Why does it matter that Aaron Parnass has been referred to as the Gen Z Walter Cronkite? She wants us to view these creators as TV stars looking for fame, not real, genuine people. Taylor doesn't publish a copy of the contract or explain how she obtained it, which leads me to believe that she didn't even read it. The creators involved are free to create content on any topic they so pleased, proven by the vast range of perspectives represented within the cohort. They advocate for policy reform and support certain candidates, but they're not unified in which candidates they support. Some support Mamdani, some support Gavin Newsom, some support smaller politicians that will help them achieve a common goal, not on pushing a campaign for one specific candidate. Wired claims that the creators involved were unable to discuss or disclose their involvement in the program without prior authorization from Chorus, according to stipulations in the contract. The idea she's getting at here is that this program was a secret fund to push the agendas of billionaire donors. Even the post-publication note feels a little antagonistic. Talking points makes it seem like there was a script that they were required to follow, as if they couldn't use their own words. But here's the thing. This rule that Taylor outlines here is pretty standard for working with any political nonprofit. Not only does it reduce policy capture, but if someone is aligned with a political program and the program's name and reputation might be put at risk, it makes sense to have it run by them. This is standard. If you've had to sign a contract with a nonprofit before, you know that they have to cover their bases for brand risk and liability. They don't want their name involved in drama, much like the kind that Taylor is stirring here. It's also important to remember that some of these creators are part of marginalized communities that are currently under attack. Trans people, immigrants, people whose identities might require more security to stay safe. Not mentioning other creators could be an initiative to protect them. But there's no curiosity here, just coming in with a preconceived idea that this is a horrible, evil program. In the next section, we get some really creative well poisoning. By placing project of in quotes, Taylor is directly referencing the contract. But to an uninformed reader, it seems like Chorus isn't a real project at all. She absolutely could have worded this differently, and I think it says something that she left it this way. Now here's something surprising. She does mention that 1630 handles operations for the nonprofit, but this is the only time that she says anything about what 1630 actually does. She claims that the for-profit marketing agency, Good Influence, has ties with the 1630 fund. But just because the fund has ties to a for-profit business isn't definitive proof that this money is being mishandled. It can be concerning for sure, but making inferences like this without solid evidence is even more concerning. Again, notice how she implies wrongdoing without proving it. Records reviewed by Wired. What are the records even of? Lorenz goes on to describe the overall scope of the influencers involved, combining the audiences of all creators, large and small alike. She mentions that there were hundreds of creators ready to amplify messaging, but no evidence as to what messaging they were specifically going to amplify. I feel like if there was some secretive agenda, they would have mentioned what the cohesive message is in these secret records. And sure, yeah, this is a bit of speculation on my part, but there's so little evidence, I'm left to put the pieces together myself. Okay, so now we're gonna do a quick tally. I'm gonna count how many times we get a vague source of information in this article. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 anonymous donors of information. Again, it's just really hard to trust this article. Not only because of the origins of her information, but because of what we already know about Taylor's public positions.
Please don't say that I support the Democrats, okay? You know that that's not true, and it's just absurd.
In terms of the treatment of creators within the program, all we get is hearsay, which is incredibly frustrating for an article focused on transparency and political reporting. We get testimony from creators who were never involved and never read the contract, but no perspectives from those within Chorus. All of her sources seem to agree with her stated position, and we don't even get any alternative perspectives or even a little bit of curiosity as to the intentions or actual functions of the program. And we now know that those alternative perspectives exist, because their reputations were damaged as a result of this article. Personally, I don't know how to read this as anything other than a hit piece. Vis Bihar, who is named multiple times in the article, accuses Chorus of using their images in fundraising decks without permission. It's noted post-publication that they had never been included in Chorus materials, nor had they been named as part of the effort. One source simply says that he was upset that he didn't get chosen for the program. We don't know why, we don't know if he had access to a copy of the contract, and it's not clear what his perspective adds to these accusations. Keith Edwards wasn't invited, but says that the structure seems predatory, and that he wouldn't have joined anyway. Okay, good for you. If I try my best to steelman the decision to use these vague anecdotes, the point seems to be that these uninvolved creators are disinterested in the program because it seems untrustworthy from the surface. Taylor's trying to show that she and others see red flags that might constitute predatory behavior. It's important to acknowledge how a program like this is received within the community, but it's also important to make sure that people aren't being misinformed on the details of the program that they're commenting on. A lot of the critiques don't seem to grapple with the nonprofit legal structure, like the difference between a 501c3 and a 501c4, what a fiscal sponsor is, or what campaign finance laws actually prohibit. Hell, I thought I had a pretty basic understanding of it, but doing research for this video, I'm learning so much that I didn't understand before. I worry that in the age of TikTok and instant headlines, it's really easy for all of us, myself included, to form strong opinions without digging into the history, the legal context, or the fine print. It's an absolutely brilliant thing to be passionate about a cause. But if you can't back up your positions with any substantive critique past, "this seems predatory," I start to worry about what context you actually have. It's times like these that make me especially thankful for my AP English teachers in high school. They taught me almost everything I know about doing bias-aware research, constructing persuasive arguments, and taming my wild ADHD thoughts into something comprehensible. Thank you guys. Love you. Okay, back to the nonsense. Taylor mentions that the website includes a donate button. What a cool thing to put on a website! It's almost as if that's how nonprofits work. I understand that the concern is that the money doesn't go directly to creators, but that makes sense in the context of a training program. In fact, this point seems to undercut the idea that course is predatory. For one thing, the faces of several creators are displayed openly, which shows their public involvement. And two, the donations appear to be going towards the program's stated purpose, which is training and resources. The idea is that with this kind of support, they want creators to develop the skills and stability to sustain their own work without needing donations long term. That's kind of the end goal of a training program, is to be able to support yourself. Lorenz includes multiple quotes from reputable scholars, but they're more so used as an appeal to emotion rather than facts. Language like pulled into these dark campaigns or shadow campaigns where the legal aspect is murky at best is a big reason why I'm frustrated that a definition of dark money and a brief history of it isn't included. It implies that anonymous funding is always a negative. The way this next section is written made me really confused. Lorenz uses quotes here that make it seem like Mr. Hyder is speaking directly on the chorus program itself, but there's no context clues to imply that she's actually contacting the people that she quotes. All she writes is, "Don Hyder says." Are we getting a quote from an article or a journal? Are we supposed to infer that she just has access to these people on speed dial? I don't know. It feels like Taylor's the one giving an opinion on anonymous funding overall with what she inferred from the quote. We find another post-pub note here reinforcing that there were no restrictions for creators to work with outside groups or other partnerships outside of Chorus. There are 4 notes in total, and that's a sign of bad journalism. Spahar, who was never involved in the program and doesn't appear to know how it operates, believes that this is a way of gatekeeping political leaders. I understand the sentiment. Finding funding for independent media outside of dark money is absolutely preferable. Working without a contract is absolutely preferable. But painting Chorus as an organization that mishandles funds and gatekeeps political leaders without any concrete evidence is baseless and defamatory. Okay. Stop me if you've heard this one before. A former Playboy executive, an American Girl doll meme account, Regina George, and a TLC reality star all walk into a bar. The bartender says, "What is this? The Democratic Party or a sleepover?" I mean, come on. This quote frames the influencers involved as unserious Democratic shills who don't deserve funding. Why else would she describe the cohorts as meme accounts, TLC reality stars, and Playboy executives? This isn't just semantics. Language like this shapes public trust in who gets to tell political stories. Olivia Giuliana has never self-identified as a centrist, which makes this comment feel like a personal dig at her political stances. Rational descriptions of David Pakman and Ariel Fedora are sprinkled into the well to make it seem less like poison, but all it does is trigger me. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Lauren Peretra, but she's a progressive leader in the creator economy and goes against the narrative that women in the sex industry are stupid or incompetent. So why does her past role at Playboy matter here? Does it damage her credibility to be a woman with experience in the sex industry? As for Sander Jennings, this attack feels incredibly harmful. Sander is the older brother of Jazz Jennings, who was one of the first publicly trans kids to star in a reality TV show. I remember her coming out and showing people that trans kids are just kids. Sander is inspired by his sister, and despite not being queer himself, has dedicated his advocacy to transgender rights and other leftist policies. He's the kind of guy that I was talking about at the end of my video on trans men. We need more cis people supporting trans rights, so why are we attacking Sander of all people for simply receiving media training? When I say that Taylor is coming after her own side, This is exactly what I mean. These are her allies. These are people who are using their platforms to create real change, and Chorus provided support in cultivating their skills to grow even more. Why is she focused so closely on liberals using the funding for good, when there are so many examples of conservatives doing the same but without any moral ethics? Next, we get into the relationship between far-left influencers and the Democratic Party. What's important to note here is that unwelcome doesn't mean an official ban. People certainly felt more excluded, especially as leftists become more outspoken on controversial topics like the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But it seemed to be selective engagement, not outright denial like Trump currently does. It was more of a shadow ban. For example, if you're someone like Hassan Piker, who did not advocate for the election of either Biden or Harris, believing both Democrats and conservatives are equivalent in terms of damage to the country, I think it's kind of fair for the Democratic Party to not want to associate with him. It's just not a good look to support anti-America pundits who don't even support you when we're trying to reunify the country in a time of civil unrest. This is my mantra, and I have to recite it multiple times a day. Think of the normies. Think of the voters who aren't as terminally online as we are, who don't keep up with politics for one reason or another. Would they support a candidate who speaks with rhetoric like this? Will extreme hyperbole help our side win an election? I'll let you decide.
And I find the comments that Hassan made on 9/11 to be objectionable and reprehensible. And I also think that part of the reason why Democrats are in the situation that we are in, of being a permanent minority in this country, is we are looking only to speak to journalists and streamers and Americans with whom we agree of every single thing that they say. We need to take the case to every person, and I'm happy to do that, which is why I was on Fox News yesterday talking about how I wish it was more like NASCAR, so we could see all the billionaires who are sponsoring you right on your suit jacket.
One of the major concerns that Taylor has with this program is that creators were not required to disclose their involvement in the program in the descriptions of the posts themselves. As we've established, the creators were not paid to make content for this program, so there was no reason they would have to include something like #ad or #powered by Chorus if they are not getting paid for the content. This kind of framing doesn't expose corruption. It corrodes solidarity. It convinces the public that collaboration itself is suspicious. We get some more colorful verbiage, like doggedly defended, and another fun fact about one of the creators being a comedian. But the worst part about this paragraph in particular is the note about Elizabeth Booker Houston and Ali O'Brien being in talks for the highest paid tier at Chorus. If we go back to Farm to Tabor, we know that funding was going towards legal fees and paying her editors. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes that makes someone eligible for this tier. Did those creators need more assistance in tackling barriers to content creation? We have no idea, and that's really frustrating. We're pretty far into the article now, but we still don't have any juxtaposition between how conservatives and liberals use dark money. This almost makes it seem like it's a problem that only exists on the left. But don't worry, towards the very end, she brings up Tenet Media, a right-wing media company funded and controlled by Russian operatives. Now this part really fucks with my head, which is saying something because this entire article gave me a migraine. You're really going to compare an incubator program where larger creators mentor smaller creators to achieve progressive goals to a Russian infiltration of the right-wing media space? Are you serious? Do you not realize how damaging this is? Do you not understand the impact of your words? There's no evidence of the claims that Taylor's making towards Chorus, yet she decides that left-wing use of dark money is equivalent to being paid by Russian spies. I can't tell if she's stupid or if she knows exactly what she's doing. I can only describe this as slimy. Lorenz closes out the article with the rational concern over funding sources, attempting to conclude with pure intentions. And yes, I agree. This is a necessary conversation, but it doesn't require defaming and discrediting people who are on your side in the fight against Trump and conservative media. So, that was a lot, and I'm just taking this in from the audience. Once the article was published, it was only a matter of time before people got angry, especially those involved in Chorus. Farm to Tabor was in the Chorus program herself. She made a brilliant video on the situation and how Chorus saved her channel, and I encourage you to go and listen to her directly. For our purposes, we'll just be doing an overview of her experience, but you can find a link to her video in the description. Agriculture is a topic that has been widely ignored by progressives, despite our outspoken support for migrant farm workers. The field is dominated by conservatives, and a majority of America's farms are owned by corporations. The image of a good old American man breaking his back to support the family by running a potato farm out in Idaho is becoming less and less familiar. Nobody on our side really knows how the system works. But Farm to Tabor does.
It's honestly really saddening to me that you kind of have to latch onto a scandal of something else entirely to get people to pay attention to this. This is where we're at as a country and as an information economy.
Having run for Commissioner of Agriculture in North Carolina, which is a role that she describes as like the state-level version of head of the USDA, Farm to Tabor has the direct experience necessary to advocate for change. She addresses crises like human trafficking and legal slavery on American farms, and even how dark money funds the food you eat. She's worked within government and in nonprofit organizations, so negotiating the chorus contract wasn't her first rodeo. Tabor understands the ethical question that anonymous funding raises within a liberal's mind. She's witnessed firsthand how anonymous funding corrupts our government and impacts everyday people. But pragmatically, we have to make a difficult choice, and it's one that's practically made for us. If we deny dark money, we're denying our voice being heard.
Again, I ran for office. I got a front row seat at how money in politics really distorts and corrupts our politics. But at the same time, if you think the answer to that is for folks on the left to kind of put the arms down first, I don't know what to say to you.
Tabor contradicts Taylor's assumption that the contract was strict and non-negotiable by explaining the process of viewing the contract as a prospective cohort. Chorus sent out a sample draft and followed up with the creators, doing a Q&A and adjusting the terms as needed. A few creators saw the contract but didn't follow up with the Q&A, and most likely didn't have a full understanding of what the program entailed. These might be the creators that Taylor mentions in her article.
So again, I've run a political campaign before, and I was like, oh yeah, totally makes sense, got it. And a couple folks, again, they were still digesting what this means, and just heard they're telling me what I can and can't say. I think a couple of them dipped out of the program before fully understanding what that was, and they went and spoke to some folks without a full understanding of what's going on. And it's totally fine for people to decide not to do something, based on whatever level of understanding they have. But when you have a reporter who also doesn't understand that, and then you also have editors at a journal who don't understand that, that's how you get scandals out of, we were training people to not do dark money in politics. This is wild. I love it.
She says that it was incredibly hard to fund her channel before joining Chorus, and she might have lost it entirely if it weren't for their support. She received $2,000 a month, but it went entirely to lawyer fees. Not a penny went into her own pocket.
I'm still mostly funded through Patreon. Oh, I should mention, yeah, Chorus, I'm only getting $2,000 a month, and I'm not keeping any of that. I'm using that to pay lawyers, right? I'm using that to pay an editor. I had a guy who, fortunately really believed in what I was doing. I could not pay him a living wage at the time, and because of Chorus, I was able to do that. I'm able to pay my editor a living wage, and I'm paying myself the same amount that I was before I got the Chorus scholarship. But finding that other folks in the program are making $8,000 a month, I don't begrudge them that at all. They are doing good work, and I know they have to be supporting a lot of other people while they do that. So just like most of my cash goes right out the door to pay other people to do what they do and what they're good at, there's a lot of that going on for other creators as well.
Farm to Tabor's experience stands in direct opposition to the image that Taylor portrays in her article. She was heard, supported, and encouraged to speak her mind. Her existence in the creator landscape not only benefits progressives as a whole, but anyone who wants to learn more about agriculture and the incredible work that goes into feeding our country. From what I know about her, I think she deserves to keep her channel, regardless of her affiliation with 1630. I think her voice should be heard. Personally, I think all of these people should have their voices heard.
At the risk of giving an internet troll more attention, I want to address a piece that Taylor Lorenz wrote yesterday for Wired.
So I wanted to start off with a creator that was actually in the program, because Taylor doesn't include any perspectives like that in her article. But what did the founder have to say about all this?
The article is about Chorus, which is a nonprofit that I helped found to build up our creator ecosystem, which everybody says they want, but few are doing.
Brian Tyler Cohen wasted no time in correcting the record. Having worked on this program entirely for free, he explains how important Chorus is, not just to him, but to the creator landscape as a whole.
Influencers and creators have never been more important when it comes to how Americans are consuming their news. The right has been doing this for years, and the left needs to catch up. That's why we're doing this with Chorus.
All we can do is take Brian at his word, mainly because there's no solid evidence of wrongdoing on either side. But he does have the credentials of being the program's founder, and that gives his words a lot of weight. He addresses the concerns of cohesive messaging and partnership disclosures directly.
It was made clear to all of the creators in our kickoff session that they were absolutely free to talk about Chorus, and we immediately followed up to confirm that in writing. Creators have videos about Chorus, they've got donation links to Chorus in their bios. I myself have made videos that were posted all over the internet about Chorus that reached hundreds of thousands of people. It is not a secret, and it never was.
And highlights the fact that no creators seem to have changed their public stances on topics like Gaza or the Democrats since participating in the program.
I don't know a single creator who would willfully sign up for a program that would tell them what they can or can't say. That's not what this program is. We pay people to show up to workshops and technical trainings to optimize their content online.
Because the contract is not public, the backlash is a lot of literal blind rage. The skeptics still believe he's being paid to say the right things by his wealthy donors. He's being framed as some type of controlling villain, and his comment sections are filled with antagonistic questions like, "Why can't we see the contract?" or ultimatums like, "Just prove us wrong." For many of these commenters, no amount of evidence will get them to change their mind. While revealing the contract seems like the easiest way to clear the air on this issue, there are a few very standard reasons why this might not be possible. One, the structure of the program itself, including funding and revenue sharing, is kept confidential to avoid other programs undercutting their strategies and stealing intellectual property. Two, we know that the contract is in fact negotiable, which means that it might not be standardized and uniform for each creator. And three, there needs to be consent on both sides, program and creator, if the contract includes any personal information. There is so much anger around what seems to be standard practice, but it seems far more important to tailor to address a progressive media training program, I guess. David Pakman posted a response in the days following, emphasizing the importance of a program like Chorus. Conservatives are far more successful with online messaging, and we need to fight back. We genuinely stand no chance if we can't unify our voter base before the next election. Pakman reiterates that Chorus has no affiliation with the DNC, and the DNC has no impact on the messaging that independent creators put out. The idea of controlled speech is something that he says goes against his values. When it comes to creators, we can only take them at their word. But he's echoing the same sentiment as the outside sources quoted in the article, and other creators who have come forward about their involvement. He closes by expressing his intent to use the current drama to find flaws in his past positions and content in order to grow from it, reinforcing the fact that infighting on the left will ultimately destroy us. Hutch had a lot to say about the situation. First, he debunks the claims that creators couldn't speak on their involvement with Chorus by highlighting multiple cohorts who have come out to say that they're not paid to create content. Their participation was not a secret, and there were no restrictions on what kind of content that could be made.
Like, the very existence of her in this program completely annihilates the premise that this group was paying people to toe the party line and not talk about Gaza. I think this is her shitting on Cory Booker.
Tweeted left and right, Republicans and Democrats, Americans agree. The starvation in Gaza is unacceptable.
She is more than shitting on what many people refer to as, the establishment Democrats. She is laying into them and just straight up calling them complicit in a genocide.
There's very important context left out of this article of why the standard disclosures aren't the kind we use at Chorus, and that's because Chorus never pays us to make a video. The author of this article actually said that in a comment. You're correct that Chorus does.
This is Taylor Lorenz herself saying that Chorus didn't pay them to post specific content. So like typically when you do disclaimers, it's like if you're being paid to do a particular kind of content, like if I get a sponsored stream with, what do we do, PAX East last month or the month before? It's in the title, like PAX partner, I'll do like a verbal disclosure. When I was doing stuff with Progressive Victory, I would tell you guys on stream that I was in a sponsored relationship. I don't know how I phrase it exactly, but disclosing to you guys whenever I would do those sorts of things. There's still a Nightbot command right there. If you're not getting paid to do any content, that's a whole different kind of thing, right?
He shares that those daily texts that Taylor talks about, they just included topics that were suggestions for creators who needed ideas on what to talk about. It was not required, and barely any creators utilized the suggestions. Nicholas Diorio, however, I bet you didn't expect to hear that name in this video, actually raised a counterpoint that I think is worth noting.
But anytime money is involved in stuff like politics, you have to ask, is that what's really happening? Again, a person was quoted, and I forget who exactly it was, saying that they would literally fucking Heil Hitler if Progressive Victory paid them enough money. And it was one of the people, I believe, that was being paid by Progressive Victory. All right? If you're being paid a lot of money from an organization, and that organization is saying like, here, this is some of the stuff that we were talking about this week. This is kind of some of the stuff that's big in politics. And you need the money. You're not like Loaderbox. You're not like Hutch. You need that fucking money. Are you going to be more inclined to just say that shit anyway? Like, even if you don't mean it, are you going to be more inclined? Because you need this $4,000 for pass and go. You need this $2,000 paycheck. So at that point, it's like you weren't explicitly told to do something, but I don't want them to stop paying me, so...
The problem is that without a copy of the contract to review, or more testimony from those involved, we don't really know the answer. This is a valid concern, and I think it's what Taylor intended to bring to light, and then failed to do so when creators declined to comment. Ultimately, all these things are headcanons and speculation. Until we get more information, we can't say anything for certain about the handling of funds within Chorus. Going back to Hutch, the idea that influencers involved were being silenced on Palestine is honestly ridiculous, especially without any evidence to back it up. There is, however, evidence of the exact opposite. Creators such as Ali O'Brien, who were outspoken Palestinian advocates. But let's just sit down for a second and be honest with ourselves. The discourse around Israel and Palestine on the internet right now is toxic. If a creator avoids it, it's likely because they struggle to deal with the responses they get from all sides. If you're speaking out on Palestine, you need to be really careful with your words. Otherwise, you invite harsh critique for your positions no matter what they are. On the topic of creators being unwelcome at DNC events, Hutch mentions the light criticism might not be as light as implied.
Find me one like very progressive or far lefty creator that lightly criticized Joe Biden. Okay. Nonetheless, like, why do I need to explain why Democratic Party operatives and campaign managers would be reticent to invite Hassan Piker to their event? Why do I need to explain this? She's making Hassan out to be a martyr in this article.
Taylor Lorenz called President Biden a war criminal. You're 100% entitled to free speech. You can say whatever the fuck you want. But this is the guy who was the face of the Democratic Party for years. Once you're tied to an official or semi-official event, your speech reflects back on the institution, fair or not. And because the DNC is hypersensitive to their public image, speech like this undermines the party's ability to trust those creators as reliable messengers. Overall, his stance is that this personal development program was beneficial, and that no partnerships needed to be disclosed because not a single person changed their views because of Chorus, nor were they being paid to create content for them. Because we're starting to repeat the same points over and over, I just want to highlight Suzanne Lambert's petty queen energy and this one important point.
Hey gorgeous, no, actually George Soros bought my car directly with his credit card, which was so nice of him, and I want to be abundantly clear right on the outset. This is not me apologizing, this is not me convincing, this is not me trying to persuade. These are the objective, irrefutable facts, and if you choose not to believe an entire group of widely respected, smart, credible people over a perpetually disgraced ex-journalist turned beggar for Substack subscriptions, then I think you are, and I need you to listen to this very carefully, profoundly stupid. So first on Taylor Lorenz, I have never met a more widely hated, universally contemptible person beyond Taylor Lorenz except for Ted Cruz. And Taylor very dishonestly framed it as we are secretly getting paid. Let me ask you a question. When you get paid at your job, are you secretly getting paid because it's not announced to the internet? It goes back to the quote, everything feels like a conspiracy when you don't understand how anything works. Because now I'm getting all these comments, oh, you switched up, oh, you're such a sellout. Let me ask you something. What did I switch up about? What did I used to say that I am not saying anymore? What position did I drastically change? I'll leave you with this. If seeing people getting paid to work, who by the way, many of whom belong to marginalized communities that y'all claim to support and care about, if seeing them making money and working pisses you off, too fucking bad. Finally, the switch up from a lot of y'all has been crazy. The fact that so many of y'all would willingly, blindly believe someone who is proven to be uncredible and getting in my comments saying all kind of awful things about me and the things I have chosen to be vulnerable with you about will not be soon forgotten by me. And when she again, inevitably, sympathizes with rhymes with Yahtzees like she did for Clock It 2 times this week, don't come crawling back to me.
This whole controversy distracts us from the real harm that's being done by the current administration. Liberals and leftists are both fighting against this existential threat. Infighting will just destroy us. Infighting is a way that conservatives win. There's far more that I can get into in regards to this scandal, especially since Taylor refuses to let it die. But if I do, this video will never end. But I will say, I think it's a really interesting choice to discuss the backlash with someone who was accused of having CSAM on his laptop just 2 weeks prior. This woman is not a serious journalist. For me, Lorenz's reporting is a litmus test of media literacy. She likes to make claims in such a matter-of-fact way that it almost seems inherently honest. She knows how to write, how to make her articles look and feel authentic by utilizing academic scholars and logical appeals, and big words. I think she enjoys the limelight a little too much. She writes with the intention of internet notoriety and not genuine authenticity. She aims to trigger her audience into some type of reaction that will push her content to the top of your Twitter newsfeed. She hops on debates with polarizing figures like Piers Morgan and Destiny, but fails to address the rational concerns of those who disagree without devolving into internet drama. Because of this yearning for fame, Taylor is willing to step on the careers of her allies. Her poorly researched article is riddled with post-publication notes that contradict the very claims that she stands on. Regardless, the internet loves a good controversy, and there was no stopping the wave of harassment that came as a result of Lorenz's writing. It's clear that Taylor doesn't hold much concern for the people that she slanders. As much as I dislike her, Taylor Lorenz is an intelligent woman. She holds a degree in political science and has been reporting on internet culture for almost 15 years. She knows exactly what she's doing, and that's what makes this so malicious. She knew that Chorus wasn't being funded directly by 1630. She herself has been part of a nonprofit program receiving donations through 1630. She knows what a fiscal sponsor is, how nonprofit legal structures function, and that standard partnership disclosures wouldn't apply to this contract. She knows. So the question I'm left with at the end of this project is just, why? Why would she publish this article? What does she have to gain in defaming progressive voices? The answer is clout. Taylor doesn't want to be an independent reporter. She wants to be a drama YouTuber. She wants clicks, subscribers, and patrons. She loves it when her comment sections are filled with people who agree with her every word and despises dissent in her echo chamber. As I said when we first got into the article, she doesn't like liberals. She's part of this growing movement that equates moderate libs, soc dems, progressives, and Democrats with the right wing. From this perspective, if you're not left enough, you're just as bad as Trump. And this is a massive problem that needs to be addressed. We're going through an insane change as a country. We're watching the outcome of years of rage, resentment, and pain from a population who's been taken advantage of by the government meant to protect them. Not only that, but technology is expanding rapidly, and who knows what AI is going to bring next. I've been through a lot of crises in my life, but one thing I've learned from all of those situations is that in a time of crisis, we need to calm the fuck down. You can't stop the bleeding if you're having a panic attack. You won't survive if you freeze. And a lot of people think that the opposite of freezing is fighting, but that's just another trauma response. How well do you listen to someone who's screaming at you? How often does anger resolve issues within your personal life? There's not much difference between politics and interpersonal communication. This is gonna sound insane, but I believe that every skill that can be applied to a failing marriage and couples therapy can be applied to the disconnect between liberals, conservatives, and anyone in between. At least in terms of just not screaming at each other. Ever since Trump took office, we've really been struggling to disagree without losing our minds. We can't have a debate over policy without devolving into ad hominem attacks or stupid nicknames. It's like all the adults in the room just got up and left us to fend for ourselves. We've gotten really stubborn and fixed in our tribes, and half the time we don't even realize that we're following the herd because we believe wholeheartedly in the message. But it's not too late to look at things from our own unique points of view. In my own life, my political career up until very recently has been based in complete and total rage. And that makes sense, right? I mean, look around us. But it also formed this paranoia within me about who I can or can't trust. Is this guy with the massive Trump flag flying from the back of his pickup truck going to rear-end me if he sees a gay pride sticker on my car? Would this stranger give me trouble if he knew that I went to a BLM protest? To be fair, I have an anxiety disorder, but I wouldn't be surprised if these circumstances exacerbated it. Over time, I stopped believing that there was a world that we could coexist in that didn't feel so hostile. Recognizing this habit within myself is exactly why I'm so critical of Taylor's reporting. She flattens complex situations into good versus bad, ignoring any nuance to be had. She works backwards from her conclusion, seeking any evidence that might affirm it, while ignoring the rest. And if you don't align exactly with what she believes to be left-wing, you're labeled as a centrist, conservative, or some other enemy. I guess my point here is that we try so hard to turn up the contrast and make our lives as black and white as possible. And it's not intentional. We use it as a safety mechanism. I believe this because it's good, I denounce that because it's bad, and anyone who disagrees with me must be immoral. And sure, this makes things really easy to handle. It's the same reason why people invest themselves so heavily in religion. It's comforting to know and believe you're doing the correct thing. But who really defines what's correct? Paradoxically, this framing only serves to aid the conservatives that Taylor claims to oppose. It's completely fine to draw issue with a political program or with certain political creators. What's not okay is this drama that's akin to something you'd hear in a middle school hallway. There was a way that Taylor could have brought up her concerns about dark money or anonymous funding that resulted in a productive conversation with Brian Tyler Cohen. There was a way to write this article without defaming the creators involved, many of whom are already struggling to succeed in a hostile landscape. Taylor Lorenz just does her work differently, I guess. If there's anything I want you to get out of this video, it's that we need to upgrade to color TV. Black and white was a world-changing era, and it still has its time and place, giving our movies and Instagram posts that antique look. But that's the thing. It's an antique perspective. It's something we've left behind, because the world looks so much better in full-spectrum Technicolor.